What if Hollywood's greatest sci-fi ideas didn't start in Hollywood at all? Across the Pacific, Japan was crafting stories that didn't just copy, they reinvented everything. From glowing mutants to dream hackers, these films changed how the West imagined the future. Some inspired blockbusters you know by heart, others stayed hidden for decades. But all 15 proved one thing: Japan didn't follow sci-fi's rules. It rewrote them. Number 15. The Mysterians, 1957. Before blockbuster was even a word, Japan was already doing it better. The Mysterians, directed by Ishiro Honda, didn't just show flying saucers, it reinvented what alien encounters could look like. This was the first time Japanese audiences saw a full-color sci-fi world shimmering with cosmic energy. The aliens weren't mindless invaders, they were cool, confident negotiators landing on Earth with one demand: peace through control. That twist turned the genre on its head. Until then, American films gave us flying discs on strings and villains in rubber suits. Honda gave us design elegance. Ray guns that glowed, suits that shimmered, and an enormous robot named Mogera stomping across landscapes like a steel giant out of a fever dream. Hollywood took notes. When Close Encounters of the Third Kind introduced communication instead of conflict, when Independence Day lit up city skylines, those creative sparks traced straight back to the Mysterians. And the real secret? It made destruction look beautiful. Buildings crumbled like glass, art skies glowed pink with energy blasts, and even the apocalypse looked cinematic. It told filmmakers everywhere sci-fi doesn't have to be cheap thrills. It can be spectacle with soul. If the 50s gave us fear of the unknown, the Mysterians gave us awe, and Hollywood's imagination was never the same again. Number 14. Warning from Space, 1956. Before UFOs and government conspiracies became common plots, Warning from Space dared to imagine something stranger and wiser. Directed by Koji Shima, this was Japan's first color sci-fi film featuring glowing starfish-shaped visitors descending on Tokyo. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to warn humanity that its own atomic experiments were spiraling toward disaster. That message was revolutionary. In 1956, while American films were busy showing bug-eyed monsters attacking cities, Japan flipped the narrative. The aliens were peaceful. The danger was human arrogance. It was a subtle, eerie, and strangely hopeful story that hinted we might be our own undoing. Visually, Warning from Space was surreal. The shimmering cityscapes and luminous alien designs felt like something out of a fevered dream. The film looked like a children's picture book turned nightmare, and that's exactly what made it unforgettable. Hollywood noticed the tone shift. Decades later, The Day the Earth Stood Still arrival, and even Interstellar carried the same echo. Otherworldly visitors arriving not to destroy, but to enlighten. The idea that aliens could be philosophers instead of monsters started right here. And beneath its dated visuals was a timeless warning that humanity's thirst for power might end up being the true invader. Warning from Space didn't roar, it whispered, and that whisper still echoes through every thoughtful sci-fi that dares to ask if we're really listening. Number 13. Goke, Body Snatcher from Hell, 1968. Now this one is nightmare fuel with style. Goke Body Snatcher from Hell begins with a plane stranded in a blood-red sky and ends somewhere between madness and apocalypse. Directed by Hajime Sato, it was part alien horror, part moral parable, and completely unforgettable. Passengers turn on each other while a mysterious glowing entity seeps into their minds. The effect? Faces split open, logic collapses, and paranoia takes over. It's wild, grotesque, and yet eerily beautiful. Every frame looks like a fever dream painted in crimson. Western directors couldn't look away. When Ridley Scott built the creeping dread of Alien, or when John Carpenter trapped characters in icy isolation, in The Thing, they were echoing the claustrophobia Goke had already perfected. This was no clean invasion story. It was about fear eating people alive from the inside out. the film's message hit harder than the makeup effects. It asked, when faced with disaster, do humans band together or betray each other? The answer wasn't pretty, and neither was the ending. In many ways, Goke turned sci-fi horror into a mirror, showing us that monsters aren't always from space. They can live right next to us, smiling politely, until panic hits. It was raw, unsettling, and decades ahead of its time. Hollywood borrowed the tension, the confined dread, and even the concept of infection as metaphor. And just like that, Goke's eerie red skies became the blueprint for paranoia that would define an entire generation of Western horror. Number 12. The H-Man, 1958. If film noir and radioactive terror had a child, it would be the H-Man. Directed by Ishiro Honda, this eerie hybrid fused gangsters, detectives, and glowing mutants in a story that slithered between genres. The setup was simple. Criminals start disappearing, leaving behind only their empty clothes. The cause? A mysterious luminous slime creeping through Tokyo's underbelly. The brilliance of the H-Man was that it didn't rely on giant monsters or alien spaceships. It was about corruption, scientific and moral. The villain wasn't just a creature. It was consequence. The mood was all shadows and neon glow, half horror, half tragedy. American studios were fascinated. The film's melting man imagery later reappeared in The Blob and even inspired later Contagion thrillers. But Honda's version had something Western imitations lacked: empathy. There was sadness in every dissolved beauty, in every pool of light where a person used to be. Technically, it was groundbreaking too. The practical effects, those haunting dissolves, the trick lighting the translucent shapes, were decades ahead of their time. The idea that a monster movie could be poetic came straight from here. The H-Man proved that horror didn't have to scream. It could whisper its way into your imagination and stay there. Hollywood took that cue, turning glowing goo into box office gold for years to come. But none of those later hits captured the eerie melancholy of the original. In the end, the H-Man wasn't just science fiction. It was a ghost story about progress and the things it leaves behind. Number 11. Matango. Attack of the Mushroom People, 1963. It starts as a castaway adventure and ends as one of the most haunting psychological sci-fi tales ever filmed. Matango, directed by Ishiro Honda, followed a group of survivors stranded on an island covered in strange fungi. As food runs out, desperation sets in and the mushrooms begin to look suspiciously appetizing. What begins as survival quickly turns into mutation. One by one, the characters surrender not to hunger, but to the eerie pull of transformation. It's a slow burn of paranoia, vanity, and desire wrapped in fog, rot, and silence. Western filmmakers loved it, even if audiences didn't know what to make of it at first. The creeping decay, the sense of beauty turning monstrous, echo decades later in movies like The Mist and Annihilation. Matango showed that real terror isn't in the creature. It's in the moment you stop being human and start becoming something else. And visually, it's stunning. The damp sets, the eerie lighting, the way colors seem to fade as hope disappears. It's the kind of storytelling where atmosphere becomes a character. Hollywood learned a quiet lesson from it. Horror doesn't need jump scares when dread can be elegant. It can sit in your gut like a secret you can't unsee. Matango may have been dismissed as too weird when it first released, but that weirdness was its superpower. It dared to say that survival sometimes costs your soul, and that's a theme modern cinema still can't shake. Number 10. Tetsuo, The Iron Man, 1989. You think you've seen cyberpunk? You haven't until you've seen Tetsuo, The Iron Man, directed by Shinya Tsukamoto. This isn't sci-fi, it's an explosion, a handheld nightmare shot in black and white pounding like a jackhammer, where a man slowly transforms into a living sculpture of steel wire and rage. Forget polished effects or smooth storytelling. Tetsuo is chaos incarnate. The camera shakes, metal screeches, and every scene feels like a fever dream caught between art and insanity. It's claustrophobic, sweaty, industrial, and completely unforgettable. Hollywood's eyes widened. Suddenly, low budget didn't mean low impact. The Wachowskis studied its metallic mania while shaping The Matrix. David Cronenberg's body machine obsessions in Videodrome and Crash found spiritual fuel here. Tsukamoto's film said something Western cinema hadn't dared: to technology isn't just outside us, it's inside us. The beauty of Tetsuo lies in its madness. It's an experiment in turning sound texture and fear into pure adrenaline. The industrial soundtrack alone could power a factory, and the visuals feel like someone fed anxiety through a blender. Yet beneath all the chaos lies a haunting truth. In trying to control technology, we become it. That idea hit Hollywood like a bolt of electricity. You can see Tetsuo's DNA in every flickering wire, every metallic reflection, every shot of man fusing with machine. It was the moment Japanese underground cinema shouted across the ocean and Hollywood listened. Number 9. Akira, 1988. When people talk about anime changing the world, this is the movie they mean. Akira wasn't just animation, it was a detonation. Directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, it turned the neon sprawl of Neo-Tokyo into a living, breathing, collapsing city of chaos and prophecy. Every frame pulsed with energy. Motorbikes screeched through rain-soaked alleys. Buildings bent under psychic pressure. The explosions were art, not spectacle. And the story? A broken friendship between two street kids turned into a metaphor for humanity's addiction to power. When Akira hit Western audiences in the late 80s, it blew minds wide open. Until then, animation in America meant family-friendly or fantasy. Suddenly, here was an animated film that felt like a Stanley Kubrick fever dream, violent, beautiful, philosophical. Hollywood directors lined up to praise it. The Wachowskis, Christopher Nolan, even the team behind Chronicle, all drew from its storm of light and sound. Technically, it was decades ahead. Over 160,000 hand-drawn frames, each glowing with the kind of craftsmanship computers still can't imitate. Its cyberpunk energy reshaped visual storytelling across the globe. You can trace its influence from Blade Runner 2049 to Stranger Things. But here's the twist. Akira didn't just predict the future, it built it. The film's vision of dystopian cities, corrupt systems, and unstoppable evolution became the blueprint for modern sci-fi, and Hollywood's still catching up. Number 8. Ghost in the Shell, 1995. The line between man and machine blurred forever in Ghost in the Shell. Mamoru Oshii's animated masterpiece dropped like a quiet revolution, slick, philosophical, and hauntingly beautiful. Set in a world where cybernetic upgrades are common and consciousness itself can be hacked, it posed a simple but terrifying question. If your memories can be programmed, what makes you you? Hollywood didn't just admire it, they borrowed wholesale. The Wachowskis openly screened Ghost in the Shell to pitch The Matrix. The green code, the cable ports, the long pauses where machines seemed to breathe, all of it came straight from Oshii's world. But beneath the tech and trench coats was something deeper. The film moved slowly, deliberately, letting its ideas sink in like raindrops on glass. The cityscapes weren't just backgrounds, they were characters. Neon reflected on water like digital ghosts. What made it unforgettable was how human it felt. Amid all the machinery, it whispered about loneliness, identity, and purpose. Western directors from James Cameron to Ridley Scott called it one of the greatest animated films ever made. And it wasn't just anime fans who took notice. Hollywood's entire cyberpunk renaissance from The Matrix to Ex Machina owes its heartbeat to Ghost in the Shell. It taught everyone a lesson that still resonates. The future isn't coming to destroy us, it's coming to ask who we really are. Number 7. Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, 1984. Before Avatar, before Wall-E, before anyone in Hollywood cared about eco-sci-fi, there was Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. Hayao Miyazaki's masterpiece gave us a princess, a toxic jungle, and a world trying to heal itself from humanity's mistakes. But more than anything, it gave us empathy. Unlike typical post-apocalyptic stories, Nausicaä didn't celebrate survival through violence, it celebrated understanding. The creatures weren't enemies, they were part of a delicate balance. The main character didn't conquer nature, she listened to it. That quiet heroism redefined what science fiction could mean. Visually, it was breathtaking. Giant insect creatures drifted like airships, spores glowed in the dark, and wind swept through ruined landscapes like music. The film's mix of natural beauty and mechanical decay became the visual DNA for dozens of later blockbusters. James Cameron credited Miyazaki's work as an inspiration for Avatar. Pixar designers studied it for emotional storytelling. Even George Miller's Mad Max, Fury Road, carries traces of its environmental mythos. But Nausicaä's secret weapon was its optimism. It said, yes, humans make mistakes, but the world will always try to forgive us if we learn to care. Hollywood borrowed that message and wrapped it in bigger budgets, but none captured Miyazaki's quiet grace. This wasn't just sci-fi, it was philosophy painted in color and wind. And in a way, every eco-epic since has been chasing Nausicaä's shadow. Number 6. August in the Water, 1995. Here's where things get strange in the best possible way. August in the Water, directed by Goke. Ishii isn't your typical science fiction. It's a dream disguised as a movie. The story follows a teenage girl who, after a near-death experience, begins to develop mysterious powers linked to water. But this isn't about superheroes. It's about transformation, spiritual, emotional, and cosmic. The tone is meditative, filled with long silences, reflections, and the soft rhythm of running rivers. Visually, it's mesmerizing. The camera lingers on rippling surfaces, shimmering sunlight, and faces that seem to hold entire galaxies behind their eyes. It's the opposite of loud Hollywood sci-fi. It whispers instead of shouts. And yet that whisper carried far. Filmmakers like Darren Aronofsky and Alex Garland would later craft movies, The Fountain Annihilation, that chase the same feeling. Sci-fi as transcendence. Where the alien isn't out there, it's the next step in us. What makes August in the Water special is its courage to slow down. It suggests that evolution isn't about speed or dominance, it's about awareness. The film left Western artists stunned, realizing that science fiction could be intimate, even sacred, without ever using the word. Hollywood eventually learned that too. The stillness of arrival. The visual poetry of Interstellar, the fragile wonder of Her, all reflect the same current that began in Ishii's quiet masterpiece. It may not have explosions, but it has something rarer, serenity powerful enough to change the way you see the universe. Number 5. Electric Dragon 8000V, 2001. If electricity had a personality, this would be it: loud, wild, and beautifully unhinged. Electric Dragon 8000V, directed by Goke Ishii, isn't just a sci-fi film, it's a punk rock concert filmed with lightning bolts. The story? Two men, both charged literally with electricity, clash across the rooftops of Tokyo in a duel that feels more like a music video than a narrative. One channels volts through his guitar, the other through his fists. What follows is chaos in the best possible way. Raw noise, flashing lights, and sound so distorted it feels alive. Hollywood had never seen anything like it. The energy, the editing, the rhythm, it all screamed rebellion. Directors like Edgar Wright later built entire styles on this kind of kinetic storytelling. You can see the film's fingerprints in Scott Pilgrim versus The World and Guardians of the Galaxy, where humor, speed, and soundtrack fuse into a single pulse. But beneath all the madness, Electric Dragon has soul. It's about frustration, freedom, and the need to channel chaos into art. It turned sci-fi into a visual jam session, gritty, stylish, and overflowing with attitude. This was proof that science fiction didn't need clean lines or polished CGI to hit hard. It could be grimy handmade and still shock audiences into awe. Ishii turned voltage into poetry, and Hollywood has been humming to that rhythm ever since. Number 4. Paprika, 2006. Dreams were never the same after Paprika. Directed by Satoshi Kon, this animated masterpiece dives into the mind, literally. It follows a device that allows therapists to enter a patient's dreams, but when that technology falls into the wrong hands, reality begins to crumble. It's dazzling, surreal, and hypnotic. Imagine parades of dolls' hallways folding in on themselves and worlds colliding without warning. Every frame feels like a lucid dream on the edge of control. Hollywood didn't just love it, they borrowed from it. Christopher Nolan's Inception mirrors Paprika's dream logic. Almost scene for scene, the twisting corridors, the blurred boundaries between sleep and waking, even the question of what's real. But where Nolan's version was precise, Kon's was pure imagination unleashed. Paprika wasn't about stealing ideas, it was about exploring how fragile the human mind can be when fantasy and technology overlap. Kon captured that tension between creativity and chaos, reminding viewers that imagination is both our greatest gift and our greatest risk. The movie's influence goes beyond film. It shaped how animation video games and music videos visualize dreams. Its tone, equal parts whimsy and menace, proved that Japanese sci-fi could paint emotional landscapes just as vividly as visual ones. Satoshi Kon passed away far too soon, but Paprika remains his electric legacy, a movie that dared to dream bigger than Hollywood itself. Number 3. Time Slip, 1979. Imagine an entire army unit vanishing from the modern world only to reappear in feudal Japan. That's the wild premise behind Time Slip, also known as G.I. Samurai, directed by Kosei Saito and starring the legendary Sonny Chiba. The setup is simple but irresistible. Tanks, helicopters, and soldiers thrown into a samurai battlefield. What follows isn't just spectacle, it's a clash of eras, philosophies, and pride. Watching machine guns meet swords isn't just thrilling, it's oddly tragic. The film explored something deeper than time travel. It asked what progress really means. Even with superior firepower, the soldiers discover they can't control the past. Tradition, honor, and human cunning tear through their strategy faster than bullets ever could. Hollywood was fascinated by that idea. Films like The Final Countdown and Army of Darkness later played with the same modern versus ancient twist. Edge of Tomorrow pushed it further, but Time Slip did it first. The battle scenes shot with gritty realism gave audiences both awe and discomfort. It wasn't a power fantasy, it was a warning. The future isn't always an advantage. Time Slip stands out as one of Japan's boldest genre experiments. It proved that sci-fi could mix with historical drama and still feel raw, dangerous, and alive. Hollywood would keep riffing on that formula for decades, but none captured its strange, haunting melancholy. Number 2. Returner, 2002. By the early 2000s, Hollywood had The Matrix, Terminator, and Minority Report. Japan answered with Returner. Directed by Takashi Yamazaki, this time travel adventure fused alien invasion martial arts and cyberpunk cool into one fast-paced thrill ride. The story follows a streetwise gunman and a girl from the future who must stop an alien war before it begins. But what makes Returner unforgettable isn't just its effects, it's its confidence. Slow-motion shootouts, bullet-time action, and polished digital visuals proved Japan could match Hollywood's spectacle punch. For punch. You can feel the Matrix influence everywhere. But here's the twist, it works both ways. The fluid choreography, neon-drenched sets, and slick cinematography showed Western audiences that Japan wasn't just the origin of cool ideas, it was their evolution. More than that, Returner dared to mix genres with zero hesitation. It's part sci-fi, part buddy film, part superhero origin story, and somehow it all clicks. That creative fearlessness inspired later crossover hits like Looper and Edge of Tomorrow. It's the kind of movie that doesn't apologize for being stylish. It just is. Returner proved Japanese filmmakers could take Western tropes, remix them, and throw them back across the ocean 10 times sharper. Hollywood may have had the budgets, but Japan had the imagination, and Returner was living proof that the future of sci-fi could wear any language it wanted. Number 1. Cashern, 2004. If style could break the sound barrier, Cashern would be the sonic boom. Directed by Kazuaki Kiriya, this dystopian epic is one of the most visually daring sci-fi films ever made Japanese or otherwise. Set in a world devastated by endless war, Cashern follows a scientist who accidentally creates superhuman beings. What unfolds is a story about guilt creation and redemption told through digital cinematography so striking it looked like nothing else on Earth. Every frame feels painted, not filmed. The silver skies, floating cities, and ghostly battlefields created a visual language that Hollywood quickly embraced. Movies like Sky Captain and The World of Tomorrow and Speed Racer owe a quiet debt to Cashern's digital dreamscape. But what truly makes it special is its ambition. It blends philosophy with comic book aesthetics, creating a world that feels both mythic and deeply human. The scale is enormous, yet the emotions are intimate. The result? A movie that doesn't just show you a future, it makes you feel its weight. While Cashern didn't dominate box offices, its legacy lingers in every CGI-heavy epic that dares to combine visual spectacle with moral reflection. Hollywood learned from it that design could carry as much emotion as dialogue. In the end, Cashern wasn't just a movie, it was a manifesto, proof that Japan could push sci-fi beyond limits, budgets, and language barriers into pure visual poetry. So maybe the future didn't begin in Los Angeles, it began in Tokyo. These 15 deep cuts didn't just inspire Hollywood, they rewired it. They turned fear into art chaos, into design and imagination, into legacy. Now it's your turn. Which of these forgotten Japanese sci-fi gems do you think deserves a modern revival? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe, and keep exploring the stories that built the worlds we dream about.